God's Word doesn't shy away from hard realities. The Bible includes stories about child sacrifice and sexual abuse, even graphic violence. And so because He doesn't avoid hard topics, we don't want to avoid hard topics either. The reality of abortion is really hard enough as it is. We don't need to inflate it. We certainly don't want to be shocking with it. And so in this session, we're going to share some graphic realities about abortion. And if that's a part of your story, or you just feel like that's not something that you're going to be able to work through, I want to give you a moment to step out of the room and come back and join us at the end of this session for discussion time. The history of abortion really involves women who said, hey, we're pro-birth control, but we're anti-abortion. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, even maintained that position, although she was pro-forced sterilization, which is a hard reality and maybe another conversation that we could have another time. But Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a victim of forced sterilization and a leader in the civil rights movement, said, look, legal abortion is legal murder. As she was seeing the eugenics movements and their influence on abortion across the country. And so we want to be truthful. We want to be honest about what's ahead and what abortion is. And just as Jesus said in John 17 through 19, as He petitioned God, as He prayed for us, that we would be sanctified in His truth.
Knowing what abortion is and the truth of the matter, it will help form your perspectives and the language that you use when you engage those who are for abortion. We do want you to be aware, though, that Planned Parenthood does have messaging to influence the public when they state words like, abortion gently empties the uterus. This is false. There's also other language that's used like reproductive rights, abortion care, and even the latest, reproductive justice. At the end of the day, this is just false branding and a false narrative.
Yeah, so we want to encourage you, if you're talking to somebody and you hear terms like abortion care or reproductive justice, it's important to help people define their terms because they may not know what abortion entails either. And just pause and ask, hey, what do you mean by that? In our first session, we defined what abortion was, and I want to redefine it here. That abortion is the intentional decision to end the life of an innocent preborn human being. It's violent and it's murder. And so we want to review what the abortion procedures are, but as Frank Pavone said, America won't reject abortion until it sees abortion. And so we're going to encourage you at the end of this session to actually go visit abortionprocedures.com and watch those on your own time. Certainly if abortion's a part of your story, you already know what abortion is. You may not need that kind of direction or instruction, but if you're still talking about abortion like it is safe or it is gentle, we want to encourage you to be informed. So the first and most common abortion procedure is often called a medical or chemical abortion. It involves the abortion pills. They were developed back in the 1980s, and it's really two pills. The first one poisons the uterus. It removes nutrients that are needed for the embryo or the fetus to continue to develop and can be taken up to 11 weeks. The second pill is then taken and it causes the uterus to contract and ultimately empties the uterus so that the child's no longer there. The second abortion procedure is known as an aspiration abortion. And a tube is placed inside the uterus and then a suction, often 10 to 20 times the power of a household vacuum, is used to empty the uterus because the embryo or the fetus is not rigid enough, they're not developed enough that it can actually fit through that tube. The third abortion procedure is known as a D&E abortion or a dilation and evacuation. And this is for a woman who is in her second trimester. It involves dismembering a child in the womb while they're still alive, while they can feel pain. And once a child has been removed from the uterus, the abortionist then has to scrape the inside of the uterus to ensure that all parts are removed and then pieces it together on the table. The fourth abortion procedure is known as an induction abortion, and it happens in the third trimester. The only major difference between it and a D&E abortion is that a needle is inserted through the mother's abdominal wall, and it stops the beating heart of the developing fetus.
Now we know what the abortion procedures are. Let's take a turn, talk about the abortion industry and the long-term effects that can be felt by men and women who have had an abortion. So I'm a former client of Planned Parenthood. The last time I was in a facility was because I was seeking Plan B contraceptives because I had had unprotected sex the night before. I can tell you much about that experience, but basically I went into a hallway to get my test results from my pregnancy test with many other women sitting right next to me. It lacked privacy, and I was also told that even though it was too early to tell that I was pregnant, that if indeed I was pregnant, come on back, they would take care of it. I was given contraceptives and sent along my way. I can tell you, looking back at that moment, it felt cold. It felt more about volume and less about specialized health care.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's often confused is an office like that is usually a referral office. They don't do abortions there. They actually refer women to an abortion clinic where those are usually located near college campuses or in low-income areas, and up to 10 to 15 women an hour will go through those abortion clinics to obtain those services. One of the things that most people don't understand is that the abortion clinic or the abortion industry is really unregulated due to a decision that came out of the Casey versus Planned Parenthood decision from the Supreme Court in the 1990s that said that there couldn't be an undue burden placed on women to get access to an abortion. So an abortion clinic isn't regulated even like your local urgent care clinic or even a dental office. They, for whatever reason, kind of had this loophole because of access to abortion. And so you often won't find somebody who is an abortionist who has admission rights to a hospital in the event that there's a complication or a woman's uterus is pierced during one of those later term abortion procedures we mentioned before. But the abortion industry and the landscape is really changing. It's becoming more efficient due to some of the pro-life laws and legislation that's been passed recently to reduce or regulate abortion. And so we're seeing abortion become available more online and by mail. Even international pharmaceutical industry companies are shipping abortion pills by mail to women in private, in secret, which in some ways is really fulfilling what the idea behind the pro-choice movement was all along. But where we really start to see that fall apart is that women are given these pills and told, go home, take these in secret. They take the first pill, they start to experience some cramping, they take the second pill, and then they're told to just sit on the toilet. And really for the first time, we're starting to get calls from women that are saying, I took these pills, I'm at home, I'm in an apartment, I'm a single parent, I've got children in my home with one bathroom, and I just took the second pills. I've now had an abortion, but it won't flush. And so when you think about the gravity of that reality and the impact that that's having on women in our community, not just now, but decades since, you need to be prepared as an individual to be an active listener and to care for somebody where that's a part of their story.
Yes, I think most women would agree that they know when they have the abortion procedure that it's taking the life of an innocent child, even if that decision was made out of desperation. There are a small percentage of women, though, that we do need to acknowledge that see abortion as not a bad choice for their life, nor as something that they've given any second thought to. And I picture it like this. A woman goes into the dentist to have a tooth removed. By the time she's left that dentist's office, she's no longer contemplating the thought of that tooth or even the whereabouts of that tooth.
Yeah, I think if you were convinced that your embryo was really just a clump of cells, you could easily see it that way, maybe until you started parenting children later on and understood the reality of embryology or just child development and started to look back and then wrestle with the decision that you had made.
Yes. So let's talk about the impacts long term. I would think that most pro-choice and pro-life advocates would agree on one topic, and that is this. The abortion impacts a woman psychologically. Now, pro-choice advocates will state there's pre-existing conditions that lend to a psychological impact. Pro-life advocates would state, no, the act of abortion itself lended itself to a psychological impact. There's no research that definitively says, hey, it's in one camp or the either other. But currently, we know at the end of the day that long after the abortion procedure is over, the impact can be felt long term.
Yeah. So I just want to reiterate the two pieces of homework that we have for you from this session. And the first is for you to go home and watch the abortion procedures for yourself at abortionprocedures.com. The second is that you would identify a pregnancy resource center in your community that offers the abortion pill reversal so that you're aware of where to direct a woman if she were to change her mind or make that decision to have an abortion, and that could be an option for her. We've talked about the scientific evidence for when life begins and what the preborn are, acknowledging that there is a whole living human being there in the womb. And regardless of what the procedure is, we want to acknowledge that abortion is murder. It's violent. And so we want to defend the rights of the fatherless and the widow. We want to care for those in need, as Scripture says. We want to make sure there is equal protection for those who are vulnerable in our communities and stand in the gap for those who are hurting. And so we know this has been heavy. Honestly, this has been heavy for us to communicate with you. But thank you for waiting with us through this.